Alright guys, welcome to Gusto Reactions once again. Thank you so much for always liking, sharing, subscribing, telling everyone about what we do right here at Gusto TV. Thank you so much. It's Gusto Reactions once again, and today I've got the one and only Lala in the building.
You know what's amazing about this Shei's introduction? It's always the same thing overseas of videos. Like it like say you don't master.
What did I go do now?
You don't master.
What did I go do now?
No word is always missing. You try.
Thank you so much. Allah, you're welcome. You
You
look tired and
you look tired now.
Me? I still did ginger, SWAT, SARS.
We just got back from an SARS protest close to our office here.
Yes, SARS.
I think we walked how many kilometers? Probably about 10 kilometers.
Yeah.
5 kilometers go, 5 kilometers come.
Yeah.
Maybe not up to that, but
it ain't easy.
No easy.
Shout out everybody out there protesting peacefully. Of course, we hope that the federal government and of course state government, local government, everyone listens to the demands of the youth for better lives for Nigerians. Reform the police, and whatever unscrupulous elements.
In the force,
yes, and of course,
and compensate the victims.
The victims, yes. Don't give victims 1 million naira, give up by 100 million naira. That's all wrong now. All wrong.
It's okay. All
wrong now. Anyways, one of the major fighters, one of the major people whom history will never ever forget, in terms of fighting for the right of Nigerians through his music, through talking and a couple of other things, is the one and only Abamieda. Baba Fela Kuti. Yes, yesterday was his birthday, and of course Fela is gone, but his legacies are still very, very much alive. Now, a lot of people have been protesting. As far as the bad guy, Burna Boy has been tweeting, billboards out there, Wizkid protesting in London, Davido went to Abuja, Tiwa Savage, everybody doing their beat, and for all that you care, you get everyone, no matter what you do in terms of music, in terms of protest, there's that standard. People would surely refer to the fact that, oh, Baba Fela, oh, you music, oh, Afrobeat, Baba Fela, oh, the protest, Baba Fela fought for this and everything. So, Baba Fela has been, quite instrumental to the significance of, the Nigerian struggle, basically, right from the time with his music and everything. Now, the question is, what, at this time, SARS and everything, what would Fela have done if he was alive?
Okay, what would he have done? I want to give a brief history of, Fela and his family of.
Yes, so before you go,
Fela comes from a family of radicalists. If I want to put it that way, like they're radicals in their family. That they hold some views very strongly, and they're never afraid to voice out those concerns. Fela's dad was a cool guy, was a priest, I saw a reverend, and he was also a teacher. His mom, Fela Nicola Olufumiwa some Kuti. Till today, what people usually say is that the woman was the first person to drive a car. But in actual sense, that's like the barest minimum of things she has actually done in terms of activism in Nigeria. She was actually one of the foremost feminists in Nigeria. Oh, for real? Yeah, I think in the 1960s or 50s or thereabout, she was a feminist, fought for women's rights with a lady called Pelewura. Yes, there's a lady called
Pelewura.
No,
Pelewura.
Yeah, Madam Pelewura. She was the Yaloja at that period. So during the colonial era and everything, they were tag team.
Guys, listen. history lesson going on right now.
It needs to be history lesson. So they were. I mean, she was like a I won't say a trainer. This underling between for Pelewura. Pelewura was the foremost Yaloja fought for women's rights, made sure they were not overtaxed. While the men went on war, they were the ones providing food for the nation. Even when they didn't want them to sell the foods in Nigeria at that time, she fought and said, no, people will not go hungry in their country of birth. Like she stood firm. So because of that, people like Olufemi Amson Kuti, Fela's mother, came on board, also fought for women's rights. And then through that, I think part of the the ginger and everything, the blood, the gene passed on to the sons, which we have Fela Kuti.
Yeah.
And then Fela actually was even sent to London to study medicine. And Baba said, which medicine? And he studied music.
Music is the thing.
Fela had 2 siblings who were actually medical doctors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was meant to be a medical doctor. He said no.
He also had an uncle, Beko Rasom Kuti.
Yes, Beko Rasom Kuti. Then also, I think his trip to the USA, when he went for studies, actually transformed how Fela saw a lot of things. He was now radicalized by the Black Panther movement going on in the USA at that time. So when he came back to Nigeria, his whole views about political happenings in Nigeria actually changed, and he was very vocal about it. And he made several direct songs. He didn't go biting about the bush. He went about calling names of people he held strong views against. Even some of our faves that we also say, that people who are favorites, as are today, Fela called them out for being thieves. Fela called them out for being corrupt elements in the government. He called them out for a lot of things. Yeah. So Fela was very vocal when he was doing the military rule as well. The current president was not, he wasn't spared of Fela's. Fela dedicated a song to our president that is right now. He was in military that day until he was actually sent to jail for 20 months. He was charged with
treason.
No, he was charged with smuggling fake currency or thereabouts. Wow. That's why he was charged with for 20 months before he was released. He was released by General Babangida at the time. So Fela was very vocal. Apart from these guys I've mentioned, he was very vocal. He talks about things about the happenings in the country. He mentions direct names of the people involved. He doesn't just throw general people they suffer and they do this. Nah, he goes about calling names directly. He was never scared of anything like that. And his music was acted as a wake-up call to the Nigerian masses. Then he was able to wake up enough to be conscious about what's going on around them. So that was what his music was, his activism was for. He held strong views about what the colonial masters did in Nigeria. Held strong views about the current people who were faced, for example. Held strong views about MK Abiola. MK Abiola is very well celebrated in the southwest of Nigeria. In fact, almost everywhere in Nigeria. Very well celebrated. Fela called him out for being an international thief. He also mentioned Olusegun Obasanjo in those songs and everything. So Fela was very vocal, and that was the type of activism Fela did back in the day. And looking at what his children and grandchildren are doing right now, it looks like the ginger has passed on to them, because Seun Kuti, same as Fela, very vocal about what is going on in the country. He even goes as direct as possible. Femi Kuti is a bit relaxed, but Femi Kuti also, as you can see right now, is also protesting on the street. He's the son of Femi Kuti. Madi is also on the street protesting. So you see, the family of Fela. Also, a fun fact about Fela is his surname was initially not Anikulapo Kuti. The original name was Ransom Kuti. He actually stripped that ransom off his surname because that name, according to him, was a slave name. So the ransom in it, he took it off and brought in Anikulapo Kuti. And Anikulapo, meaning in Yoruba, means someone who carries death in his pouch. Like death's always in his pocket. So the guy was a radical, and he was arrested. This is records now. He was arrested over 200 times throughout his lifetime. And the longest stint he spent in jail was 20 months. That was when he was arrested over 200 times. And because of how his music, I don't think anybody has that record in this Nigeria. Nah, because of he didn't fear anybody. Because of how his songs were, how direct he was, he incited the government to always lash out back at him. Like, imagine he said one of the most bloody ones that led to the death of his mother was one of the songs he dropped, which he entirely lashed out the government of Nigeria. But that boy said that too, that they killed his mother, and of course, because of him, so that, like, there's a whole lot, about Baba Fela Kuti, and of course, shout out to Baba Fela Kuti. I mean, he's gone, but of course, legacy. Legacy lives on. Like in that particular instance, apparently his record shows it that they threw his mom out. I mean, there was the old Fela shrine, and they were living opposite. They threw the mom. She was already elderly at the time. Olufemi Kuti. They threw her out of the window, had injuries on her leg. Those injuries led to her death. They burnt down the studio, the old Fela shrine. Then all these records, masters, everything, it was burnt down to the ground. And then in response, he took the coffin, everything, took it to the barracks where Olusegun he took it to the barracks and said
FELA KUTI.
So the guy was a radical. He held a lot of views, and he was not afraid. He was never afraid to show it in his music. All he ever did was speak with his voice, and it was so powerful because of how he went about it. He never sugarcoated anything. In as much as he was that kind of person, he also had criticisms, like people who were around him also criticizing him for some things. Apparently, the Kalakuta Republic, where he was, it was let's say the leader of Kalakuta Republic, the whole compound. He was the judge, the juror, the executioner in there. If anybody had anything to that had done something, he was one who met out disciplinary actions. The guys flogged them. The ladies locked them inside teen jails and things like that. So those were the criticism that people made of him, that he was more of an authoritarian than any other person that he has spoken out against. So those are the sort of criticism that people always relate with Fela.
To fire back at him.
Yeah, also feminists as at that period used to criticize him and say he was misogynist. He was a misogynist. That means he didn't regard the women's rights. Because he married all his singers at that time, about 27. 27 at the time, but he had a reason, and the reason might be legitimate. The reason was that the Western culture was trying to be, they wanted the Western culture to overrule the African culture. Like the African culture, you know that yes, you can marry as many wives as you want. Polygamy was the in thing at that time. But the Western culture, they wanted to overrule, they wanted one man for one.
So you wanted to make a statement?
He wanted to make a statement, and now married 27 of his wives. of his dancers. Yeah, he married them. The other reason he married them was so that the government wouldn't accuse him of kidnapping them. So that was another reason he married 27. He also had a way of the way he worked. Like he said, he could only keep 12 of the wives at a time. 12 for 1 month, 12 for another month. So the guy was a radical. He had straight up mad views. If he was alive, if he was to go on
SARS movement, if he was alive,
I don't think he would have hit the streets, because there are no records of him actually hitting the streets to protest. But he would have gone direct with some certain kind of songs that go straight to the kind of lyrics would be, you know, now people can sue you for libel, like assassination of character and things like that. But he would have gone direct, and he would not care about the backlash. The kind of things that he will review. I mean, a lot of journalists have information right now, and a lot of people have information about the big men in our society that they can't even utter it out because of the fear of their life, or maybe losing money and being sued to court. Fela, as a person, would not even care about things like that. He would not. He would mention it, tell you exactly the thievery that you have done, whether you are a now, whether you are celebrated now.
With a lot of corruption going on in government right now, lots of you know, all this food distribution, COVID, and like someone showed a picture of the food they shared at COVID with 10 million naira, and of course the food they shared during protest at 10 million naira, and then the food they shared, you know, at COVID with $6.9 billion. That's
a cool adjective.
Do you understand? Fela would actually have spoken.
He would have been outspoken. Yes, he would have been. I mean, we know he would have been failed, as at the time he died in 97. He was 58. 97 to 2020, that's 23 years, right? So 58 plus 23, that would be like 81. I mean, he would be frail and very, very old. And seeing that the kind of life he left, that he was a heavy smoker. He was into, I don't know how documented it was about drugs, but the part of the reason they say he died was he died with complications arising from HIV, AIDS. But it wasn't, they didn't specifically come out, but that was what was said at that period. And he refused treatment at that period. And also people are saying that he was intentionally, what's it called? Infected with the HIV/AIDS virus while he was in prison. That's one of the rumors that came around that period. So I'm thinking he would have been failed. He may not have been able to say much, but if he was able to gather energy, the kind of energy that
he would talk,
the kind of energy that Michael Jackson gathered for his last concert, you know, he was injected with a lot of what's it called? Injections.
Yeah.
He was injected with a lot of adrenaline for him to be able to perform at that last concert.
Yeah.
Something similar may have happened during this project because we know him to be very vocal. We know him to someone who says it that he's
I think that even if Fela was kind of frail and fragile and everything, he would still have, even if it meant speaking very slowly and everything, he would still have spoken against.
But I think with the way things are turned out with his sons, with FELA KUTI being very vocal online and with songs as well. FELA KUTI, I think he may have just given them his blessings to go out and do
and they don't do it well.
I don't think any of them are doing well. Like for example, now thugs came to Ikeja to harass protesters. FELA KUTI came out with his sons and people to say, by the time we got here, these people don't come out, but we did here with Gallas. So those are the kind of things that we know that the Kuti family are very vocal about when it comes to things like this. They are very they get action for body when protests or speaking against all the bad things going on in the country. They are very vocal and it just runs in the blood.
They seem to be people who are actually very knowledgeable as regards history.
Yes,
they know the history of things really well.
Their grandfathers and their great grandfathers poured out a lot. They were part of the struggle to actually get Nigerians what's it called to
independence and everything, all of those things.
Before Nigeria was independent, they were also part of the struggle in fighting for the rights, in the colonial, fighting for the rights of Nigerians. The mother was part of the people who were fighting for the rights of what's it called, females, women at that period
before independence.
Another fun fact: Fela is also a cousin of Wole Soyinka. Wole Soyinka is also one of the also an activity
forefront at the forefront.
They were cousins.
I mean, the youths are taking over right now. Wole Soyinka, like a Charlie boy, they've taken the back. Guys,
said it's time for the young ones.
Just do your thing right now. I mean, if we fought for this country for over 40 years and things are still like this, maybe you guys are the generation that Nigeria needs. You know, we are actually the generation Nigeria needs for that particular change right now. Finally, Lala, Fela is gone. Fela's posthumous birthday was just yesterday, and a lot of people have eulogized the kind of person that he is and everything. Now, how do you think, now looking at the SARS situation, how should the Fela legacy be preserved?
I mean, his legacy is already living on because at these protest grounds, people still sing the Fela song. Fela songs are they're so timeless. They're timeless and they incite a sort of, I mean, they are waking a lot some things in people's minds that even till today, certain Fela songs are still banned on radio. There are certain Fela songs you can't play. If you play it, NBC will just begile you and just give you suspension. So his songs are timeless like that, and it is just crazy that some of the things that he spoke about how many years ago? Over
still happening 30
right now. Years ago.
Still happening today. And
if you want to think about it, think about it. Fela sang about our current president back then. 1970 something, 1979 or something. Sang about him, and years later, over 10 years later, he's still our president. It just shows how we have not moved forward in this country, because we've relied on the old eggs from the people who were part of the mistakes of the past are the ones who now want to still be continuing those mistakes.
The good thing is, it's funny and it's also quite interesting that for everything that we're facing right now, Fela sang about it.
It did.
Corrupt politicians, Fela sang about it. Police brutality, Fela sang about it. Lawlessness, Fela sang about it. Like he sang about even the current president, like you said, he sang about it still.
But it's just sad that some of the young ones here who are even playing, they don't even know the full thing about Fela.
Exactly.
What people know is, I mean, sorry to say, I heard the song recently and they said, the Washifagbo, Olifagbo to Baba Fela. That's the whole first thing that comes to people's mind.
They think about, you know,
a radical who smokes
and everything. That is all they think about. Guys, you need to actually listen to a lot of Fela and Anikulapo Kuti. A lot of our legends to today. When you ask them, how did you start music? You know, who do you listen to? They say,
that was popular.
Michael Jackson, you know, in Nigeria, Fela and Anikulapo Kuti. Get one legend. Even your recent Wizkid calls himself Young Fela. You know, Davido will say, during his dad, like Davido will say, his dad house then, back then, his dad sings Fela. Ricardo Banks will say the same thing. Mali will say, Fela.
Everyone samples Fela.
Exactly, everyone samples. Even your Burna boy, African giant. You know, samples Fela a lot, and of course, he's saying that you know, he's trying to preserve the Fela legacy. So Fela Anikulapo Kuti is actually someone that you need to go to his discography, listen to his music. It resonates then and now.
Even as at then, when the song, I mean, Fela songs were usually long, over 25 minutes, and he wasn't really getting radio airplays, but he was selling it. This music was spreading. And people asked him, would you actually want to do shorter songs so you can get? He said, no, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change my style for anybody.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, I need to create a movie.
Broadway.
You know, Broadway, this thing, titled Fela. That's
Fela the
massive.
musical.
Do you understand? That's massive. That's massive. Respected in Nigeria, in Africa, all over the world. Everyone knows
was
Fela.
so controversial in one of his concerts while singing a particular song, that very controversial song, a riot broke out. That's how controversial Fela was with his music. His words had the way of just awakening something in you and just thinking, what's going on? Like, even if you were sleeping, you would feel the awakening. Those were the kind of activism he did, protest with his words, and he was always direct. It was always direct. It was never a thing of, I mean, then they thief our money. You don't mention.
Do you understand?
In these days, when people are singing those kind of songs, they just say, something. They don't talk, say this
name. Exactly.
They don't mention anybody's name.
Fela is going to go around and call you out, your name, your lineage, your family, everyone out in the public. If you want to arrest me, make you die here. That is what Fela. Anyways, happy posthumous birthday to Baba Fela Anikulapo Kuti once again. I mean, that is a legend of legends.
Legend of legends.
Do you understand? That's a legend of legends. Shout out to everyone, of course, still fighting the Fela fight till now. Wole Soyinka, Charlie Boy, those struggles in the past. Shout out to all the youth out there protesting. Of course, Nigeria will be great again. Make Nigeria Manga. Make Nigeria great again. That is the word. Guys, please continue to use your hashtags, NSWAT, NSARS, reform the police, demand for good governance. Of course, even if it means, you know, struggling to get this whole thing, if we don't get it by small, you know, get it by force. That is the way, guys. Please stay safe out there. Of course, what do you think about Baba Fela? If he was alive right now, what would Fela have done, you know, differently? You know, would he have joined the protest? Would he have said anything? I mean, I know Sir Abago don't tackle this president right now. Definitely.
There's a way you don't tackle before in the 1970s.
You get?
And he's still president. He will tell him he doesn't want to.
He will create a new song for him and say,
you don't get
shit. The man, wait till you see that there they do.
Maybe Wizkid will do old man song.
Guys, thank you so much. To see you on the next one. Let's hear from you. What you think about Fela, you know, is or will do if he was still alive at this point during this old SARS protesting. Let us know. Of course, we'll be right there to reply to every one of you. We'll see you on the next one. It's Coastal Reaction, and of course, Nigeria will be great again. Manga 2020. Peace.